I thank you, and a great pleasure to be here again in Aveiro, which I consider to have the leadership of Antonio Neto Mendes, Alexandre Ventura, a whole team of people focusing on this topic. And especially I welcome the fact that you are a diverse group, not just university people, but also the National Education Council, that there are practitioners here, there are students here. Indeed, I'm encouraging you to think whether, when you went to school, did you receive extra tutoring? Or your children, or depending how old you are, your grandchildren. I would expect that there is a generational difference. There is more and more of it according to the generations. Now, my job is to give the global picture. Your job is to analyze the Portuguese picture. But let me give some global context. As you've heard, I'm from Hong Kong. Most people say you do not look like you come from Hong Kong. I admit that I was born in England, but I have been in Hong Kong for a very long time, nearly 40 years, except for the UNESCO time that I was in Paris. And so what I will do, I will talk about the context, I will talk about patterns of tutoring. Why should different leaders at the national level, at the institutional level, even the family level, families have leaders too. Why should they pay attention? To think a little about the future before concluding. And so, in terms of the context, we are seeing this phenomenon growing worldwide. People used to be saying, oh, that's an Asian phenomenon. That's South Korea. That's Taiwan. That's Hong Kong. That's Singapore. That's you people over there. Now it is global. Here in Europe, well, I can say the world champion is South Korea. In Europe, the European champion is Greece. There is a lot of tutoring in Greece. Western Europe, it has grown more and more. Eastern Europe, partly because of the collapse of the Soviet Union and then of salary scales, teachers needed to find extra income. But now I find it even in the Scandinavian countries. Denmark, Sweden, Finland, neighbours, Norway, even there it is growing. And partly because of our competitive society and globalization. There's a growing feeling that schooling is not enough. That's worrying for the people in charge of schooling. That's worrying for the parents. And we also have increased marketization, not only outside but also inside schools worldwide. Private schools, but in this case, private supplementary tutoring. All of which is creating certainties and uncertainties. The certainties are people still believe in education. They still think education is important, worth having, but they have the uncertainties. COVID was one of the big uncertainties. And perhaps in the discussion that follows today, you can talk about the impact of COVID on private tutoring. Did it worry families? The British government is actually subsidizing private tutoring under the name of catching up. What about catching up here? Did we lose time? What is the long-term impact of COVID? Well, I've been researching on this topic for a while. There are a bunch of books which are also available on the internet. And at the end you will find my email address. If you want these books, you can email me if you cannot find them through using Google or whatever. Some are global. There is a European one, there's an Asian one, a Mediterranean one. Two are available in Portuguese. One is this global book. Secretary General, I thank you for using the word confronting. This book is called Confronting the Shadow Education System. And here is a seminar which I think we should confront instead of just ignoring, instead of just accepting that life is full of explanations, as you call them, explicações. There's a Portuguese version also of the African book, and then there's a Middle East book. So there's a lot of literature if you want the literature. International agencies like OECD, UNESCO, what do they think? UNESCO has just produced a global education monitoring report about non-state actors. UNESCO is beginning to wake up a little bit to this phenomenon. UNESCO is recognizing it's not just in schools that education happens, there's a lot of education out of schools. And we need to look at that. OECD, PISA, we're all afraid of PISA. Are you afraid of PISA? Some people love PISA. PISA had not very good questions about tutoring. Now they are going to have better questions. So we will have better data. I have been pushing PISA for a long time to have more precise questions. And the 2025 iteration will have more precise data that we can use, and that's valuable. National governments, I put them in several categories. Later I will talk about China, which is the most aggressive about our topic, and the Chinese government is trying to kill the extra tutoring sector. Sorry about that. If any of you are tutors here, don't go to China. Keep away. But it's worth seeing that very strong policy in China and in a few other countries. At the other end are mostly governments which shut their eyes, say, do not talk to us about this. In effect, the Ministry of Education is not a Ministry of Education, it's a Ministry of Schooling. And the Ministry of Schooling says, don't talk to us about this, it's embarrassing, it's nothing to do with us, go to the private sector, talk to them. And in between are mixed policies where there is some policy, which I think fits the Portuguese case as I'm hearing it. There is some policy, but it could usefully be clarified. And then, what about schools? Schools can have policies too. Alexandra Ventura and I have written about Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. That's a huge diversity of schools. Most of them are private schools. There's a huge diversity. When we interview school principals, they have diverse opinions. Some say this is great, others say it's not so good. Well, all the time, what am I talking about here? I'm talking about tutoring that's academic. There is also non-academic tutoring. Lovely to have the music this morning. You can have piano, you can have violin, you can have ballet, you can have other forms of outside school learning. We can discuss that too. It's related. But I'm especially thinking of academic tutoring that is paid for money and outside the regular school. And it has many formats. Much of it is individual, some of it is in groups, some of it is in big classes. This is actually in Hong Kong, where there is a regulation to say that you should not have classes more than 45. Okay, they say, we will have a glass window, and we have 45 here and 45 there, and actually a lecture theatre like this. And that's one man in the middle with two video screens to get round the regulations. So anybody who's thinking about regulations, you also have to think about ways to get round the regulations. The private sector will find ways round. There is the internet. Here is a child, possibly in England, but learning from India. There's a big Indian internet industry. In India, they have much better mathematics and perhaps better English grammar than the children in England, and they are much cheaper. And so they just employ tutors on the internet, and it's more and more, and it's accelerated by COVID when we were restricted from schooling, and it's accelerated by technology. And then you can have a mixture of online and offline to actually help school teachers. You can have the private sector helping school teachers. So it's very diverse, more diverse than schooling. Well, here's the metaphor. It is often called shadow education. Why? Well, simply because it mimics, and as the curriculum changes in the schools, the examinations, then it will change in the shadow. Those of you who are in the tutoring companies, tutoring industry, maybe you don't like that metaphor. I hear people say, don't call me shadow, I'm a real tutor. I accept that. There are lots of good tutors out there. But here I'm using it simply as a mimicry to say it is copying. Though, again, some of the good tutors go beyond copying. They go beyond just reinforcement to enrichment and to elaboration, which makes it a pretty difficult topic to assess. Well, as I said, East Asia is traditionally very strong, but also evident in South Asia. There's a lot of it in India, North Africa, I would say. Egypt is the champion for North Africa. Here in Europe, as I've said, it is growing and it is increasingly evident. And indeed in the Middle East, the Americas, and in sub-Saharan Africa, which in other words means it is global. This is now a global topic, and you're part of the globe, and you are contributing to the global topic. Some numbers. Let me pause. You have a look at those numbers. Any surprises? You're going to start with the Portuguese one. Let me say, Antonio, that came from your group, and maybe you have updated it. A few years ago, you were researching this. I want the update. Maybe later today, you people will give me the update, and maybe, has it gone up? Has it gone down? What would be your guess?
More or less.
More or less the same. Well, that's for discussion. Now, if we put Portugal next to all of those others, what do you feel? Any surprises? Surprisingly low? What you see is in low-income countries like Cambodia, a lot of kids going to it, partly reflecting the poor quality of schooling, but also reflecting low teachers' salaries. The teachers say, you're not paying me enough, I need extra money. And so the teachers push private tutoring. What we also see, Singapore, rich country, 80% of primary are getting these extra lessons. Now, when it's 80%, who are the 20%? They're either very self-confident, very strong, I don't need this extra stuff, I'm self-confident, or they're very poor, they can't afford it. There are two extremes. But it means, and indeed, Secretary General, you were talking earlier, it's not just the rich, you say, here in Portugal. Some of the immigrant groups who may not be very prosperous, but they are ambitious and they see education as the way to get ahead. And then there's a great diversity of qualities. It's a question, you get what you pay for, often. And so what is the quality? This is just the quantity. Anyway, again, for discussion, to see how Portugal compares with other countries. So then, the school leaders, what do they think about it? Well, as I talk to school principals and others, some of them encourage it. They say, this is great, learn from everybody. And then the school will pretend that actually they only learn from the school and the good examination results are because of the school, not because of the extra tutoring. But there are some principals, school leaders who encourage it. Some say this is ridiculous. How dare you go to the extra classes? We're a good school. I'm a good teacher. How dare you do that? Crazy. Others prohibit it. This is again, Alexandra, I'm thinking about our work in Dubai. There are some school principals who say, we are not going to allow this. Though they can't really prevent it. And the ones that worry me most are the ones that ignore it. Don't even look at it. That's why this seminar is really very important, and congratulations on having it. But then there are others who say, well, it depends. And of course, that's probably the best answer. Well, what sort of scale are we talking about? Here are small tutoring enterprises. I'll just show you a few from Thailand, from England, from Egypt, from Mauritius. You're getting a global travel here. There are small enterprises everywhere. There are medium-sized ones. Here is Turkey, Hong Kong, Myanmar. And then there are big ones, multinational ones. I'm wondering if Kumon, does Kumon operate here? Do you know Kumon? Yep. It's a Japanese, originally Japanese. Whenever I show Kumon, I ask people to look. Can you see the face there? Is it a happy face? They say, you're not supposed to be happy. You come to Kumon to learn, not to be happy. It's an interesting cultural thing. Kumon says it is a determined face. This is a face to say, yes, we are going to learn, not to waste time being happy. So there are cultural aspects that are worth thinking about. And Kumon is now operating in 50 countries around the world. I don't know if it is, well, you say there are even in Portugal. Here's a French one who, academia, they say that they will turn your child into a genius, a recognizable one, or in Denmark. Now, what about the other providers? There are teachers who provide it. What I'm hearing in Portugal, teachers are not allowed to tutor students from their own schools, but some of them do it anyway. Well, it happens in the United States. Here in Cambodia, what happens is the teachers do, whether they're allowed or not, they do tutor their own students. And in Cambodia, the problem is they deliberately under-teach in the regular classes. They deliberately reduce the content to say, sorry, not enough time, come to my house at 5 o'clock and I will give you the rest. And by the way, I set the exam, and if you want to pass the exam, you better come. So there's a corruption element there. Well, you would say that's Cambodia, that's not Portugal. University students are giving it. Other providers. Well, university students, I'm wondering, the University of Aveiro, I hope that you have good and enterprising students. Probably they're giving tutoring, especially the education ones. I always pause there on that from Malta. If you can see the signboard, you've got two choices. You can either go left to the beach, or you can have the English tutoring. Which would you prefer? I think I want to go to the beach. But again, life is full of choices. What are they going for? It's not necessarily for improvement of their grades. It's more likely to focus on enrichment than on remedial. In other words, the tutoring is usually for the people who don't need it so much. The ones who really need it are not so likely to be getting. But there is indeed a lot of competition, and parents are under pressure worldwide. Parents talk to each other more and more. Well, that's where I'm talking about whether it is really a shadow or whether it's elaborating on the school. And we've got diverse formats. I'm coming back to that topic. Japan, here is a rather innovative class where the children go out for their botany. They don't just draw diagrams, they go and check out plants. They look at the plants. Australia, on the other hand, Thailand, this is a picture I took of a tutoring class. Chemistry. See how hard they're working. All their heads are down. They're just paying a lot of attention to the online chemistry teacher. Well, why are we so worried about it? They are learning. Okay, but what type of learning? There's a huge diversity. There is more diversity than in our schools. Our schools are regulated, they have long histories. The private sector has much more diversity. There are fantastic tutors. There are really good ones. There are also really bad ones. And so maybe today you can also talk about the curriculum and the quality of what is happening in the shadow education sector, and the implications for the children, the study burden. Are the tutors helping with it or not? Well, that's again where sometimes the parents are a bit angry with the tutors. But even more, outside the school affects what happens inside the school. So it's a question of what is the implication for those of you who are teachers or have been teachers or will be teachers. What are the implications for your classroom when some are getting tutoring and some are not? Maybe it's good news. Maybe it's helping to explain the classroom content. But it also increases the diversity within the classroom. And some teachers just take it as a reason for not working so hard. They say, oh, well, if you don't understand my class, go to the private sector, go to the extra classes. They can take that as a reason for not being so diligent. Should teachers be allowed to provide tutoring to their own students or to others in their school? I'm glad to hear that Portuguese policy. It's a good policy, even if it needs a bit more attention in the implementation. And then that needs public opinion as much as regulations. Parents are always concerned about their own children, and the regulations are one thing, but what happens elsewhere is what used to be happening in China, where the teacher is in effect supplementing his pocket more than others. Well, what about the future? I don't see shadow education as going away. I'm listening to you people about Portugal. I want to hear whether you think it's going to continue to grow or at least to change or whatever. Let's see what you say about it. But here is the Chinese story, which is very dramatic. 2 years ago, the Chinese government decided to suppress the tutoring sector. Why? Number one, because they said too much study burden, too much homework from school, plus tutoring on the other side, makes the children exhausted, no childhood, just study, 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 study. Second reason, they didn't like the commercial sector invading the school sector. They said, school is a human right, it should be free, it should not have hidden subsidies. And so, very fierce regulations. Within 15 months, according to the official figures, 96% of the online were killed and 87% of the face-to-face institutions were killed. Official figures. Unofficial figures, well, we don't know, but a lot of it went underground. What we are seeing in China is, okay, you can try to regulate supply, but what about demand? And the demand is still going to be there, and I would expect the same in Portugal. The demand will not go away. So then it's a matter of addressing that demand and seeing about it. My prediction is that it will be similar to what happened in Korea, which in 1980 prohibited tutoring. There was a military government at that time. Military governments can do things. They said, tutoring, we don't like it. Killed, dead. You're not allowed to give, you're not allowed to receive tutoring. But, again, it went underground and gradually emerged until in 2000 it was declared unconstitutional. What does that mean? It means that the parent said, you, Korean government, cannot tell me as a parent that I cannot send my child to tutoring. It is a human right to be able to send my child to tutoring if I want to spend money on that. Now, I think that that's where China is likely to have to relax. As of now, there is an elaboration on those Korean figures. The vast majority of children in Korea do receive shadow education. But it has changed society, and we talk about a glass ceiling for the lower income, but there's also a glass floor for the upper classes. So, in other words, it's much more difficult to see social mobility. It's interesting, again, thinking about the immigrant groups coming here and using shadow education as a social mobility. Perhaps it works, perhaps it doesn't work. In Korea, it has become more rigid than it used to be. Korea, after the Second World War, boomed. Very strong country, partly because of education, including shadow education. But now it's become a reproduction strategy of richer families retaining their roles. What else? Well, certainly we have technologies, and then I think we also need to pay a lot more attention to regulations. and I can say a lot more, but the left-hand book is a book of mine on Asia. The right-hand book is a global book by a colleague, also available on the internet, and if you want it, I can give you the link. But if from this seminar you go to the regulations, you can think about what needs to be regulated. The premises, for example, commercial or educational, tutors' qualifications, maybe not, prices, maybe not, curriculum. We've got a lot of international experience that may be useful to you if you want to look more closely at regulations. Back to the question about whether teachers should be allowed to give tutoring. I'm personally in favor of not allowing them to tutor their own students or from their own schools. Beyond that, we have to think about how to monitor it and how to manage it. So, in conclusion, this was a global picture. Now we can come to the Portuguese one, and I really want to hear what you have to say. But from my side, I'm again waving this book about confronting the shadow education system. I think it does need to be confronted and discussed. Discussed by all the different stakeholders, by the tutors, by the parents, by the families, by the parliament, the legislators, by the researchers, etc. We do need a lot more data on this topic. That's the job for the university researchers, but perhaps also for the government and the PISA-type people. But certainly events like this can help, and I congratulate you again for this event, and I thank you for listening to me for the global picture, and there's my email address if you want any of these items. Thank you all very much. I think that's